Here's the thing nobody tells you about lost cities. Almost none of them were actually lost. The people who lived nearby knew exactly where they were. What we call discovery was usually just a foreigner showing up with a notebook. Take Machu Picchu. The story goes that in 1911, an American professor named Hiram Bingham hacked through the jungle and stumbled onto a forgotten Inca citadel. That story falls apart the second you read his own diary. Bingham was guided there by local farmers. When he arrived, 3 families were living on the terraces and growing crops in the ruins. A 11-year-old boy walked him to the site. There was even graffiti on one of the temple walls, signed by a Peruvian who'd visited decades earlier. So Machu Picchu is never missing. It was just missing from European maps. And that distinction matters more than you'd think, because the same pattern shows up everywhere. Petra, in Jordan, is described as the city the world forgot for 1,000 years. But the Bedouin who lived in the valley never forgot it. They used the tombs as shelter. They knew every carved facade by name. In 1812, a Swiss traveler named Burkhard disguised himself as a Muslim pilgrim, hired a local guide, and walked in. He didn't find Petra. He was shown Petra. The guide already knew the way. Angkor is the loudest example. Textbooks say French explorers found it swallowed by jungle in the 1800s. Meanwhile, Buddhist monks have been living at Angkor Wat continuously, praying there, maintaining it for centuries. The temple never emptied out. Portuguese and Spanish visitors even wrote about it in the 1500s, 300 years before the so-called discovery. Their accounts just weren't read by the right people in the right language. Now here's my extra wrinkle, and it's the part that changed how I think about all of this. The word lost isn't really about geography. It's about records. A city becomes lost the moment the written tradition that described it breaks. And that break is usually political, not natural. Empires collapse. Languages die. Colonizers dismiss oral history as folklore. The knowledge doesn't disappear. It just gets demoted to something nobody in charge counts as knowledge. That said, some cities genuinely were lost, and those are the ones worth being amazed by. Pompeii is the honest case. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, the ash didn't damage the city, it sealed it. Bread still sat in the ovens. Loaves with the baker's stamp still on them. The town was buried so completely that generations later, people farmed the ground above it without knowing what was underneath. Nobody handed anyone a map to Pompeii, because nobody was left alive to draw one. And then there's Heraklion, the Egyptian port that gave the world its first look at Greek traders arriving on the Nile. Earthquakes liquefied the soft clay it was built on, and the whole city slid into the Mediterranean. For centuries, historians assumed it was a legend, because it only survived in a handful of ancient texts. Then in the year 2000, divers found colossal statues and temple ruins lying on the seafloor, exactly where the old text said they'd be. The myth was just an unverified filing cabinet. So the real lesson isn't that cities vanish. It's that our record-keeping vanishes, and we mistake our own blind spot for an empty map. Somewhere out there, right now, a village is living next to something a museum hasn't heard of yet. If you like history that pokes holes in the version you were taught, subscribe. Next time we're doing the cities we still haven't found, and the one archaeologists think is hiding under a modern capital right now.